All right, so we're diving into the science of pranayama today. And you know this book is dense, right?
Oh, it is. It is packed, yeah.
So much to unpack.
Yeah.
We asked you all to send in what you wanted us to really cover, and chapter 2 kept coming up again and again and again.
It did.
And it makes sense, right? Because it's all about setting the stage for a successful pranayama practice.
Like the foundation before you build the house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, I love how this chapter, even though it's steeped in tradition, it's got these surprisingly practical nuggets of wisdom.
Absolutely. I mean, some of this stuff, it really translates beautifully into modern life. You don't have to be renunciate living in a cave to benefit from it.
Right. So let's dive into some of these nuggets. The chapter kicks off talking about having a dedicated meditation room, like a sacred space for your practice. It even suggests keeping the room locked. I don't know about you, but I don't have a room I can just lock up in.
Yeah, a little extreme for most of us.
Yeah, but the idea, the principle behind it.
Totally, totally.
Having a space dedicated to your practice.
It is about finding a quiet corner. It doesn't have to be a whole room, right? It could just be a corner of your bedroom or living room, or honestly, even just a mental space where you can consistently go back to your practice without the distractions.
It's like training your mind to shift gears as soon as you enter that space.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be elaborate either. The book talks about tiger skins and all this fancy stuff.
Yeah, they go all out.
But I think a comfortable blanket, maybe some noise-canceling headphones will do the trick.
For most of us.
Okay, so we've got our space sorted. Now, the book also delves into the mindset, the ideal mindset for pranayama. And it lists some traits that can hinder spiritual progress.
Oh, yeah. It has a whole list.
It talks about arrogance, dishonesty, and excessive attachment to worldly possessions.
Yeah.
When I first read that, I was like, well, shoot, there goes my spiritual progress.
It's easy to get caught up in those, isn't it?
It is. But then I realized it's not about being perfect.
You're right.
It's about recognizing those patterns.
Yeah. Being aware.
And how they might be creating resistance to our practice.
Absolutely. Self-awareness rather than self-judgment.
Right. And then it emphasizes cultivating these positive qualities, like kindness, honesty, patience, and something called vairagya.
Vairagya.
Now, that's a new one for me. What's that all about?
So it's basically a sense of detachment
Okay.
from material things, not about suppressing desire, but recognizing that true fulfillment comes from within. So you could think of it as mindful non-attachment, maybe.
Letting go of that need to control.
Exactly.
And finding freedom and surrender.
Precisely. And that freedom creates a space for real, deeper spiritual growth.
I like that. Okay, so space, mindset. We're building the foundation here.
Yeah.
And then the text brings up another yogic recommendation, celibacy. Now, full disclosure, I'm not ready to take a vow of celibacy.
Understandable.
But I'm curious about the reasoning behind it.
Sure. So it's about conserving energy, vital energy, and then that can be redirected towards spiritual practices. It's not a moral judgment. It's a practical tip.
Okay. Making conscious choices.
Exactly.
About where we direct our energy.
Yeah, prioritizing.
Okay. So we've got the sacred space, the mindset. What else does chapter 2 recommend for setting the stage for pranayama? What else is in this foundation?
Well, it wouldn't be a holistic approach without talking about diet, right?
Yes. The yogic diet.
It's a big one.
I have to admit I was a little intimidated by this part.
It can be a little intense, yeah.
No salt, no mustard, no sour or spicy foods. Like, can we eat anything?
There are definitely restrictions, but it's important to understand why. They explain that these foods can cause agitation, cloud the mind.
Oh, I see.
Which is the opposite of what we're trying to achieve with pranayama.
Yeah, it's like trying to meditate in a busy marketplace.
Exactly. Instead of a peaceful garden.
Right. But while there are restrictions, there are also recommendations. Like milk and ghee are highlighted.
Especially in the beginning.
Yeah, in the early stages. And then a shift towards wheat, green pulse, and red rice.
It's a nice balance, yeah.
What about fruit, though? I always thought fruit was good for yogis.
You are absolutely right. The book praises fruit, actually, for its soothing and energizing properties, even claims it can improve concentration.
Oh, good. So fruit's on the menu.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it seems like chapter 2 is all about creating this conducive environment for pranayama. both internally and externally.
Yeah, preparing the soil before planting a seed. If you want your practice to flourish, you got to set the stage.
I love that analogy. It's
Yeah.
so true. So we've got our dedicated space. We're being mindful of what we eat, working on our mindset, getting ready for pranayama.
Setting the stage.
But there's this one detail in chapter 2 that kind of threw me. It talks about facing north during your practice.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to admit, I was a little puzzled by that one.
It can seem a bit esoteric at first,
It did.
but it ties into this deeper understanding of energy in yogic philosophy. So, facing north, it aligns you with the Earth's magnetic field. And that's thought to enhance the flow of prana during your practice.
So it's not just about finding a quiet spot, but it's about actually positioning yourself
Yeah,
to optimize that energy flow.
exactly. Tapping into the subtle energies around us, working with them, not against them.
Like aligning yourself with the rhythms of the universe.
That's a great way to put it.
It is, right? It's like we're not just individuals doing breathing exercises. It's like we're plugging into this larger energetic web.
You got it. That interconnectedness is a big part of these ancient traditions. And, speaking of aligning with natural rhythms, Chapter 2 also mentions the ideal time of day to practice.
Oh, yeah. It talks about practicing during the sandhyas.
Sunrise and sunset.
Right. Sunrise and sunset. I always just figured it was because those times tend to be quieter, more peaceful.
That's part of it for sure, but there's also a more energetic explanation. You see, in yogic philosophy, the sandhyas are considered these times of heightened prana, vital energy.
Oh, interesting.
It's when that veil between the physical and the spiritual is said to be thinner.
So it's like catching the wave.
Exactly. You're maximizing the benefits by aligning with these natural energy cycles. Imagine practicing pranayama as the sun rises, feeling that surge of life force and energy.
Well, I can see why they recommend it. Makes it all feel a lot more powerful.
It does. And it reminds us that these ancient teachings, they're full of wisdom that we can still apply today.
It just takes a little unpacking, right?
A little bit.
Okay, so we've got the physical space, the mindset, the diet, the direction we face, the time of day. Is there anything else Chapter 2 recommends for setting the stage? Anything else we need for this foundation?
Well, there's one more little detail that I think is fascinating. It talks about the length of the air current during your breathing.
The length.
Yeah, how far the air travels as you inhale and exhale.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it can actually vary depending on what you're doing.
Really?
The book even gives specific measurements using digits as a unit.
Digits, like finger lengths.
Exactly. For example, it says the average exhaled breath, it's about 12 digits long.
Okay.
But when you sing, it can extend to 16 digits.
Wow.
And during intense physical exercise, it can go up to 36 digits.
That's incredible.
It is. So our breath, it kind of adapts to our activities.
It's like a shapeshifter.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The book suggests that by consciously decreasing the length of your exhaled breath, you can actually increase your lifespan.
Wait, hold on. You're saying shorter breaths lead to a longer life.
It's a fascinating concept, and it ties back to that idea of prana, that vital life force, and how managing it can impact our well-being.
So it's not just about breathing deeply. It's also about being efficient.
Intentional.
Intentional, yes.
Yeah, and that brings us right back to setting the stage, just like Chapter 2 emphasizes.
Right. So much more to pranayama than I initially thought.
There is. It's a powerful practice.
Okay, so we covered a lot in this chapter. We've got our sacred space, aligning with natural rhythms, even controlling the length of our breath. Feels like we've got the blueprint,
We do. We've got the blueprint for building a powerful inner engine.
Now we just need to figure out how to use it.
That's where the rest of the book comes in.
Exactly. So before we jump into those specific techniques in the later chapters, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned so far. What stood out to you? What can you do today, even a small change, to create a better environment for your practice?
Even the smallest change can make a difference. Keep that in mind.
We'll be back in a moment to dive even deeper into the science of pranayama. Hey, we are back, continuing our deep dive into the science of pranayama.
Chapter 2, wow, just setting the stage right. It's so much more than I initially thought.
It really is. There's a depth to it that I think surprises a lot of people.
It's not just about, okay, sit down and breathe.
No, it's about creating a whole environment and experience.
Yeah, internally, externally.
And I think that's what's so cool about this chapter. Even though we're just focusing on the preparation, it's given me this deeper appreciation for pranayama as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's like, we're laying the groundwork for some serious transformation here. And as we move into the later chapters, looking at specific techniques, we've got this solid
It's
foundation.
like we're building a house, right?
Mhm.
And we spent this whole time getting the foundation right.
Exactly.
So before we wrap up chapter 2, is there anything else that really stuck with you? Any final takeaways?
You know what really stood out to me is this idea that pranayama, it's not just a physical practice, it's a spiritual one too. It's about connecting to that vital life force within, cultivating not just physical health, but mental clarity and spiritual growth as well.
It's like we're not just breathing air, we're
Yeah.
breathing life force.
Right.
And by learning to control it, we can tap into this whole new level of well-being.
Exactly. And that's why setting the stage, like chapter 2 emphasizes, it's so important. We create the right environment, we cultivate the right mindset, we understand these energetic principles, and then we can really harness the full power of pranayama.
It's like we've been handed the keys to this amazing, powerful car, this inner engine.
Powerful engine, yeah.
Now we got to learn how to drive it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And safely.
Safely.
Responsibly.
And as we continue to explore the science of pranayama in future deep dives, we'll build on this.
We will.
Remember, even small changes can make a huge difference over time.
Absolutely. And that's what's so encouraging about it, right? You don't have to do everything perfectly all at once.
Just keep practicing, keep exploring, keep breathing.
That's the key.
And that wraps up our deep dive into the science of pranayama, chapter 2.
A great start to the book.
We'll be back soon with more deep dives. Until then, happy breathing, everyone.